Hello everyone, this is Ijaz Khan, and in today's video we will be discussing strategic planning topic of strategic business leader. There is a strategic planning model proposed by Johnson, Scholes and Whittington. It's a wonderful model for strategic planning, and it has split the strategic planning process into three steps. And using these three steps, an organization will be able to come up with a comprehensive, effective strategy for the organization. So according to this model, the strategic planning planning process will be based on three key stages. The first stage will be strategic position, that is analyzing the organization's strategic position against its environment, like where it is standing today, what is its current business model, what are its strengths and weaknesses, what are the things it does better than its competitors, and what are the things that it does not do better than its competitors, the technology it is using, the organizational structure, and all the stuff. And looking at the environment, what's happening outside the organization, and what factors are affecting the organization's performance. So, strategic position is basically split into two types of analysis, that is, internal analysis and external analysis. After strategic position, once the company is done with analyzing its strategic position, then it has to identify and find out different strategic choices that may help the organization grow and get sustainable competitive advantage. And once the company is done with choosing the best strategic options, the next step will be to put the strategy into action, to pave the way for implementing the chosen strategies so that the new strategy fits into the overall organization structure. When we talk about strategic position, we mean external analysis, that is the analysis of the environment the organization is operating in, the internal analysis, that is the factors inside the organization that needs to be improved or that can be used to improve or make the organization grow further. We'll discuss it in detail. And when we talk about external analysis, we will have two types of analysis: the micro or industry level analysis, or the macro national level analysis. So we'll start with the first stage of strategic planning model, and we will start with external analysis. And in external analysis, again, we're going to start from macro analysis, and to analyze the macro environment of an organization, we will be studying two models: the Porter Diamond model and the PESTEL analysis. These two models will help us analyze the macro level environment of an organization. So make sure that when you are into your exams, you are capable enough of identifying the relevant model to be used in a given situation. So remember that we use PESTEL and Porter Diamond models for macro level analysis, in which we discuss the macro factors like the economy of the country, the legal uh, aspects, uh, the socio-cultural factors, all factors at the macro level. So if the question asks you to analyze the industry in which the company is operating in, it means that you don't have to use these models. You have to use micro analysis models we will be discussing later. So in our today's video, we will be discussing the PESTEL analysis, and we'll look at the factors at macro level that will have an impact on organization's performance and hence should be considered while coming up with a particular strategy for the organization. So what is basically PESTEL analysis? PESTEL analysis is basically based on 6 environmental factors and their impact on any organization. And one of these 6 factors is political factor. The other one is the environmental factor, the socio-cultural factors, the technological advancements or technological changes, the economy, and the law of the country in which you're operating. Well, when we talk about pest analysis, it can be used for an existing market of the organization, but most of the times it will be used when an organization is trying to explore or expand into any new market, international market, and and it has to come up with a strategy of competing in that market and surviving in that market, prospering in that market. Then it's very important that the company, before coming up with any strategy, it should analyze the these 6 factors that in some way or the other will be affecting the company's performance. So the company has to look at the threats with regards to these 6 factors and the opportunities that lie within these factors. Maybe that the country in which we are trying to expand it, maybe there are some political changes, the change of the government is expected, which may or may not be beneficial for the company. So we have to analyze the political factors of that country that in some way or the other will be affecting our performance. So it may be from a threats point of view, or maybe creating some opportunities for us. Then comes the environmental aspect, and we'll be discussing these factors. So let's first discuss what we mean by political factors. So what we mean by political factors is that political stability or instability. If we are expanding into a new country, political stability will reduce the risks, and the instability on the other hand will increase the risk because we'll never know what's going to happen next and how it's going to affect us. And when, since we'll be coming up with a strategy, so we'll be concerned with the long-term sustainability of an organization. So if there's political instability in that particular country, then we will always be concerned with the future of the company. So it's very important to look at from this aspect. Secondly, what will be the foreign trade policy? A few governments, they encourage foreign investments and they try to create ease of doing business for foreign investors. So if we are acting as a foreign investor and we have such type of government in place, it will be good for us. We'll see an opportunity for us. On the other hand, if the government in that country discourages foreign investments, it encourages the local investors, the local organizations, then it will be difficult for us to compete there. Trade restrictions, few, as I told you, that few governments, they impose restrictions, different types of restrictions on foreign investments. So we'll have to look at whether there are such restrictions and how to deal with them before coming up with any particular strategy. And business friendliness, we've just discussed. So political factors, it goes without saying, is are one of the important factors that the company should be looking for once it is coming up with a strategy. Now, when it comes to the SBL exam, remember one thing: you do not have to pick all the factors that you see in the question. There may be distractors given by the examiner deliberately. The examiner wants you to get diverted, so you have to focus that which factors in a given situation will be affecting the company. So maybe there are factors that may affect us in some other areas, but not in the area which we are considering in the question. So you have to be very cautious in picking up the relevant factors from the environment that will be in some way or the other affecting us. Uh, so maybe in the SBL exam, we are given some information about the political conditions, but we have to look at whether those conditions are relevant, or whether those changes or those factors are relevant to the given situation. If they are, we will be considering them, but if they are not, we should simply ignore them. Just because they are there in the question and we have to use, it's not a good strategy to do so. Uh, then we must look at environmental factor. That is, that when any organization operates in an environment, it will always have some footprints, environmental footprints, in the form of noise pollution. Sometimes it will be the air pollution or the water pollution or the consumption of natural resources. And like if we have a business of paper manufacturing, so it means that we have to cut trees. We need trees to manufacture paper. So that's the impact that we'll be leaving on the environment. So we have to look at how friendly we have from environmental perspective, and how people in that particular community or that particular country respond to organizations that are environmental friendly, and how do they react to organizations that have adverse environmental footprints. So we have to look at the environmental footprints that organizations are going to leave. So, secondly, we may have to go for environmental compliance. For example, if we have we are we are looking for ISO certification for environment friendliness, then we have to comply with the requirements. So we have to look at that aspect as well, so that we are able to improve our public image. Then comes the socio-cultural factors, very important for any business to grow in a particular market, because there are different customer demographics that affect our demand for a product. So we have to look at the gender mix, because maybe we are targeting a particular gender, and if the particular gender mix is not suitable for us, our strategy will be different. But if it's suitable to us, the strategy is going to be different. So we have to analyze it from this aspect. Then the age group, maybe we are targeting kids, maybe because we are offering products that are used by kids. So we have to look at at what percentage of the population is within that age limit which we are targeting. So that's also important. Then ethnic diversity, it's very important. Um, uh, when you are dealing with a diversified community, the dynamics will be different and your strategy will be different. On the other hand, if you have you don't have multi-ethnic society, then your strategy is going to be different. It's very important to analyze the diversity of the market that we are targeting, and it does affect our products demand. Then the language, of course, if you are trying to expand into a particular market, and the language spoken in that particular market is different from the language that you speak, and so it may create a language barriers. It may be difficult to communicate with the local market, and to get them synchronized with your organization. So a language may act as a barrier. So we have to look at these factors as well before we come up with a particular strategy. Then comes the technology, which is very important to look at these days, because technological advancements, they are happening very frequently and at a very high pace. Every now and then we hear about new inventions coming up, new features coming up in the products. So we have to look at how the technology side is going in that particular environment. So, for example, if we are cell phone manufacturers, so we have to look at the quality of the cell phone networks available in that particular market. For example, if we want to put a 4G enabled, we have to offer 4G enabled devices in a particular market. But if the cell phone networks in that country does not networks do not support 4G LTE networks, then it will be fruitless to have such devices uh, to to have these devices in that particular market, because it will not add any value to the end user, and may not be able to sell those products. So we have to look at the technological side from cell phone networks, if in some way or the other it's applicable to us. Access to internet, again, it's again very important. If you look at Uber, for example, it heavily depends on the customer's access to internet, because they have an application and they communicate over internet with um, uh, their captains, with their customers. So they heavily depend on the access to internet. So if any market that does not have access to internet, it will be difficult for Uber to operate in that market. So they will have to wait unless the people, majority of the people, they get access to that market. So it's again an important factor to look at. The pace of technological growth, because as I told you that these days the pace is increasing, and every now and then we see technologies that overthrow existing technologies, and especially when we talk about disruptive technologies, like if you look at Netflix, which is a streaming website. It has completely taken over the Blockbuster. Similarly, if you look at Kodak, it has been taken over by digital cameras. So we have to look at what pace these technological advancements are happening, and how far we are good to cope up with this pace. So uh, then economy again, economy. What's the economic state of the company, whether it's the company is in the growth state, it's in recession, or it's stable. So we cannot have same policies or same strategies for all the states of economy, because for example, if a particular country's economy is in recession, and we are a company that offers uh, high-end products. So it will be difficult for us to penetrate into that market, because in a country where the economy is in recession, people will have lower disposable incomes to spend on luxury items. So we'll have to be very much cautious from that aspect. Secondly, as I told you, disposable income, which is directly linked with the economic state. Exchange rates, how the exchange rates are behaving, because we cannot have same strategy in a situation where there are extreme exchange rate fluctuations. On the other end, if the exchange rates are very stable, so we'll have a different strategy. We may not be bothered about the forex and or exchange rate risk management in case the exchange rates are stable. But if the exchange rates are highly volatile, then definitely we'll have a different risk management strategies. So we have to look at uh, these aspects. Then comes the legal. Last but not the least, we have to look at the legal requirements of that country. Um, uh, what are the do's and the don'ts of that particular country? We have to look at that aspect. We have to look at what the labor laws in that country are, and how do we have to do our hiring? What will be the mix of the labor? Because in few countries there may be restrictions on hiring somebody from outside the country, and they may have a law of hiring a particular mix of the local labor force. So we have to look at that as well. Environmental laws, what environmental laws are there? What do we have to do? For example, maybe we are not allowed to use machineries that have a higher CO2 emission, or any other environmental laws that in some way or the other will be affecting us. We have to consider those factors, because if you don't consider these factors at the time of making a strategy, we may face problems later when we'll be implementing those strategies, and our strategies may fail because we did not consider those factors that were supposed to be affecting us later on. And the corporate law, the procedure through which we will have to register a particular um, company. So these are the six factors, according to Pest Analysis, which every organization must consider before coming up with any strategy. Now, let me link it to your SBL exam. How this question is going to be, how this topic is going to be examined in your SBL exam. Uh, you may be given a situation about a company where the company will be in a process of strategic planning, and you may be asked to analyze its external environment, and the requirement will clearly state that you have to analyze external environment, or sometimes they may not state it, and they may come up ask you um, um, to plan the strategy for this organization, come up with a strategy for this organization that will work for them. But at the same time, it will give you hints about what's happening in the environment. So once you get the information about the environment, about the political conditions of the country, the change in the expected change in the governments, maybe elections are coming, or maybe the elections have just conducted, and you are in the post-election scenario, or it may tell you something about the economic state of the country, or it may tell you about the customer demographics, what type of customers are there, or it may tell you about what's happening at the technological side. Maybe there are research institutes now in that country, and every now and then they're coming up with new technologies. So there'll be hints, and there'll be indications of when to use PESTEL as an external analysis tool. Remember one thing, that it's least likely that the examiner will be asking you to use a PESTEL analysis. It's um, who have to uh, pick up the relevant model and apply that model. But more importantly, it's not necessary that you will be applying the model every time. So models are just for your guide. So they just provide you a structure around which you can formulate your question. So even if you do not apply this model with the same headings, but you come up with this analysis where you consider political factors, economic factors, and other factors, you will get good marks for that. So again, remember that you don't have to um, fit a particular model in a situation where you're not supposed to be doing. So be ready for this, that you may have or you may not have to use any particular model. So there is an activity for you. Just perform pest analysis for Uber in your country. I'm just mentioning your country because you'll know better about your country. So perform a pest analysis for Uber. For example, if Uber is trying to launch its service in your country, what factors from the environment, based on based on these six factors, will be affecting the Uber's operation. So, and how those factors are going to be affecting the Uber's operation. So you have to identify those factors, plus you have to link it to the operations of the Uber. So this is just the assignment, and in the next video we will be discussing Porter Diamond, which is a macro analysis model. So thank you for watching Easy Study. For more videos, kindly subscribe the channel. Thank you.